The morning sun peeked through the worn blinds of Zora's small bedroom, casting thin stripes of light across her face. She groaned and reached for her phone, silencing the alarm that had been beeping for the past 3 minutes. 6:45 a.m. She had exactly 45 minutes to get ready and make it to school on time. "Zora, you up yet?" Her mom's voice called from the kitchen, the smell of toast and coffee drifting under the door. "Yeah, I'm up," Zora called back, her voice still thick with sleep as she dragged herself out of bed. Her AP chemistry notes were scattered across her desk where she'd fallen asleep studying them. The test today would count for a quarter of her final grade. And she needed that A. Not just for her GPA, but for the scholarship committee that would be reviewing her application in a few months. Zora quickly brushed her teeth and splashed cold water on her face, trying to wake herself up. She stared at her reflection, dark circles under her eyes from staying up too late studying. She pulled her curly hair back into a neat bun, applied a bit of lip balm, and headed to the kitchen. Her mom was already dressed in her hospital scrubs, ready for her shift as a nursing assistant. A plate of toast and eggs sat waiting on the table. "You're the best," Zora said, giving her mom a quick kiss on the cheek before sitting down. "Did you finish your studying?" her mom asked, pouring coffee into her travel mug. "Mostly," Zora said between bites. "The molecular formulas are tricky, but I think I've got them down." Her mom smiled, the kind of proud smile that made all the late nights worth it. "You're going to do great, baby. You always do." They'd been a team of two since Zora was 8 when her father had walked out and never looked back. It had been hard at first, but they'd found their rhythm. Her mom worked 2 jobs, the morning shift at Memorial Hospital and evening receptionist at a dentist's office 3 days a week. The schedule was brutal, but it kept a roof over their heads and food on the table. More importantly, it meant Zora could focus on school instead of having to work herself. "I've got a double shift today," her mom said, checking her watch. "Mrs. Washington next door said she'd drop off some of her famous chicken soup for your dinner." "Mom, I can make my own dinner," Zora protested, though she secretly loved their elderly neighbor's cooking. "I know you can, but you'll be tired after that test, and Mrs. Washington loves taking care of you. Let her do something nice." Her mom grabbed her keys. "Lock up when you leave, okay? And text me when you get to school." "I will," Zora promised, finishing the last of her orange juice. "Love you." "Love you more," her mom replied, the door closing behind her. Zora hurried to finish getting ready. She packed her backpack carefully. Textbooks, calculator, extra pencils, her lunch, and the flashcards she'd made for last-minute studying. She checked the weather app on her phone. Clear skies, but chilly for April. She grabbed a light jacket just in case. The walk to Westside High took exactly 18 minutes if she kept a good pace. Zora had timed it perfectly over the years, knowing exactly which shortcuts to take. As she locked the apartment door behind her, she put in her earbuds and hit play on her study playlist, a mix of classical music and low-key hip-hop beats that helped her focus. Their apartment complex sat on the edge of 2 very different neighborhoods. To the west was Oakwood, with its big houses and manicured lawns. To the east was Riverdale, where Zora lived. Mostly apartment buildings, small businesses, and families working hard to make ends meet. Westside High sat right on the boundary, drawing students from both areas, creating an interesting mix that sometimes worked well and sometimes didn't. Zora's route took her down Martin Luther King Boulevard, past Mr. Chen's corner store where she sometimes stopped for snacks, the community center where she volunteered teaching kids to read on Saturdays, and the small park where she often studied when the weather was nice. The morning crowd was typical. People waiting at bus stops, hurrying to work, opening shops for the day. At the busy intersection of MLK and Roosevelt Avenue, Zora paused with a group of other pedestrians waiting for the light to change. She pulled out her phone, flipping through her chemistry flashcards one last time. Electron configuration, covalent bonds, the periodic table elements. The information swirled in her head as she tried to cement it all in place. The crosswalk sign changed to walk, and Zora stepped off the curb automatically. Still focused on her phone, a woman's voice caught her attention, firm but friendly, speaking to someone on a radio. Zora glanced up to see Officer Tanya Reynolds standing a few feet away, also waiting to cross. Zora recognized Officer Reynolds immediately. She'd been patrolling their neighborhood for about 2 years now, and unlike some of the other cops, she actually took the time to talk to people, learn their names, play basketball with the kids sometimes. She was one of the good ones. What Zora hadn't noticed before was the small but definite baby bump visible under Officer Reynolds' uniform. The sight made Zora smile. There was something sweet about the tough police officer carrying new life. Officer Reynolds caught her looking and smiled back, one hand resting protectively over her stomach. "Morning," Officer Reynolds said with a nod. "Morning, officer," Zora replied, slipping her phone into her pocket as they both stepped into the crosswalk. That's when Zora heard it. The sound of an engine revving too loud, too fast for a residential area. Her head snapped up, eyes scanning for the source. A white delivery van was barreling toward the intersection, showing no signs of slowing down despite the red light. The driver's head was down, probably looking at a phone. Zora's heart jumped to her throat as she calculated the trajectory. The van was headed straight for where Officer Reynolds was walking, slightly ahead of Zora and to her right. Officer Reynolds hadn't noticed yet, still talking into her radio, one hand still resting on her belly. Time seemed to slow down. Zora saw everything with crystal clarity. The van's logo partially obscured by dirt, the driver's baseball cap, Officer Reynolds' ponytail swinging gently as she walked, completely unaware of the danger speeding toward her. Zora didn't think. She acted. She dropped her backpack and lunged forward, her legs pumping hard against the pavement. "Officer!"
"Look out!"
she screamed. But there wasn't time for Reynolds to process the warning and move. 3 quick strides and Zora slammed into Officer Reynolds with all her might, arms wrapping around the woman's shoulders, pushing her forward and to the left, away from the van's path. The momentum sent them both tumbling. Zora twisted midair, making sure her own body would hit the ground first. They landed hard on the sidewalk, Zora taking the brunt of the impact on her left side. The white van screeched to a halt just feet away, the driver finally looking up, face pale with shock at what had almost happened. Other pedestrians froze in place, mouths open in horror and surprise. Pain shot through Zora's shoulder and hip, where they had slammed against the concrete. Officer Reynolds was sprawled partially on top of her, eyes wide with confusion that quickly turned to understanding. "Are you okay?" Zora gasped, wincing as she tried to move. Is the baby okay?" Officer Reynolds rolled carefully to the side, one hand immediately going to her stomach. "I think we're okay," she said, her voice shaky. You pushed me out of the way?" Zora nodded, the adrenaline making her limbs tremble as she sat up slowly. "That van wasn't stopping," she explained, pointing to where the driver was now getting out, looking horrified. "You saved my life," Officer Reynolds said, realization dawning in her eyes. "You saved both our lives." People were gathering around them now. Someone had already called 911. The van driver approached cautiously, his face ashen. "I'm so sorry," he stammered. "I was checking an address on my phone. I didn't see the light change. I could have. Officer Reynolds was already on her radio, calling in the incident, requesting medical assistance, her training kicking in despite her shaken state. Zora tried to stand up but faltered as pain shot through her left ankle. Maybe she'd twisted it in the fall. Her chemistry test flashed through her mind. There was no way she'd make it to school on time now. All those hours of studying, the perfectly timed morning, all thrown off by a split-second decision. But as she looked at Officer Reynolds, now speaking firmly with the van driver while keeping one protective hand on her belly, Zora couldn't bring herself to regret it. Some things were more important than tests, even AP chemistry. A middle-aged woman knelt beside Zora, offering her a bottle of water. "That was the bravest thing I've ever seen, honey," she said, her eyes warm with admiration. Zora just shrugged, suddenly self-conscious with all the attention. "Anyone would have done it," she murmured, though she knew that wasn't necessarily true. Many people would have frozen or been too focused on their own safety to act. As sirens wailed in the distance, Zora had no idea that this morning, this one impulsive, brave decision would change the course of her life forever. The ambulance arrived within minutes, its flashing lights drawing even more attention to the scene. By now, a small crowd had gathered around Zora and Officer Reynolds. Someone had retrieved Zora's backpack from the street and placed it beside her. "Both of you need to get checked out," said one of the paramedics, a kind-faced woman with gray streaks in her dark hair. She knelt beside Officer Reynolds first, taking her blood pressure and asking questions about the baby. The second paramedic, a young man with glasses, focused on Zora. Can you tell me where it hurts? He asked, gently examining her left side. My ankle and hip mostly. Zora winced as he probed the tender areas. And my shoulder where I hit the ground. Any dizziness? Blurry vision? Did you hit your head? Zora thought for a moment. I don't think so. Wait, maybe? Everything happened so fast. The paramedic nodded and shined a small light in her eyes. Pupils look good, but we should check for a concussion to be safe. Officer Reynolds insisted on riding in the same ambulance as Zora, despite protocol suggesting she should be transported separately. This young woman saved my life and my baby's life, she said firmly to her supervisor, a stern-looking lieutenant who had arrived at the scene. I'm staying with her until I know she's okay. The lieutenant looked like he wanted to argue but thought better of it. Fine, but you're getting a full workup at the hospital, Reynolds. No arguments. As they prepared to load Zora into the ambulance, she suddenly remembered her mother. My phone, she said, patting her pockets frantically. I need to call my mom. The paramedic helped her find her phone, which had miraculously survived the fall without a crack. Zora's hands trembled as she dialed. Her mom answered on the second ring. Zora, shouldn't you be in class by now? Mom, Zora's voice cracked a little. I'm okay, but I'm going to the hospital. The hospital? What happened? Her mother's voice rose with immediate panic. I'm fine, really. There was an accident. I helped someone, but I hurt my ankle. The paramedics just want to check me out. Which hospital? I'm coming right now. Mom, you can't leave work. Watch me, her mother said fiercely. Which hospital, Zora? Memorial, the paramedic mouthed to her. They're taking me to Memorial, Zora said. But Mom, seriously, I'm okay. I'll meet you there in 20 minutes. I love you. Love you too, Zora said, ending the call as they lifted her stretcher into the ambulance. Inside, Officer Reynolds sat on a bench seat, already hooked up to monitors. Her face was pale but composed. Your mom coming? She asked as the doors closed and the ambulance began to move. Zora nodded. She works at Memorial, actually. She's a nursing assistant, Officer Reynolds smiled. That's convenient. Yeah, except she's going to freak out when she sees me arrive in an ambulance. She raised a hero, Officer Reynolds said, her voice suddenly serious. She should be proud. Zora felt her cheeks warm at the praise. I just reacted. Anyone would have done the same. No. Officer Reynolds shook her head firmly. They wouldn't. I've been a cop for 8 years, and I can tell you that most people freeze in a crisis. What you did? She placed a hand on her belly. My husband and I have been trying for a baby for 3 years. This little one is our miracle. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. I don't even know your name. Zora, she answered. Zora Williams. Well, Zora Williams, I'm Officer Tanya Reynolds, and I will never ever forget what you did today. The next few hours passed in a blur of hospital rooms, x-rays, and examinations. Zora's mom arrived in record time, still in her scrubs, her face tight with worry until she saw that Zora was alert and talking. Baby, what happened? She asked, hugging Zora carefully after checking with the nurse that it was okay to do so. Zora explained about the van, the pregnant officer, and her split-second decision. Her mother listened with wide eyes, one hand pressed to her heart. When Zora finished, she simply gathered her daughter in her arms again and held her tight. That's my girl, she whispered against Zora's hair. That's my brave, amazing girl. The doctor came in with the results of Zora's tests. She had a sprained ankle, a bruised hip, and a mild concussion. Nothing broken, but she would need crutches for at least a week and rest for the concussion. No school for the next 2 days, the doctor said firmly. And when you go back, no sports or physical activity for at least 2 weeks. We'll need to check you again before clearing you. Zora's heart sank. But I have a huge chemistry test today. And track practice, and none of that matters right now, her mother interrupted. Your health comes first. There was a knock at the door and Officer Reynolds appeared, now in regular clothes. Her husband had brought them to the hospital. The ultrasound had confirmed that her baby was fine, though they wanted to monitor her overnight as a precaution. Sorry to interrupt, she said. I just wanted to check on Zora before they take me upstairs. She turned to Zora's mom. Mrs. Williams? I'm Tanya Reynolds. Your daughter saved my life today. And my baby's. Zora's mom reached out and squeezed Officer Reynolds' hand. Thank you for coming to check on her. It's the least I could do. Officer Reynolds turned to Zora. My husband is here. He'd like to thank you himself if that's okay. Zora nodded, suddenly feeling shy. Officer Reynolds stepped aside, and a tall man in a police uniform entered the room. The badge on his chest identified him as Detective Reynolds. "Zora," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't have words," he cleared his throat. "When I got the call that Tanya had been in an accident, I thought—" He stopped, unable to continue for a moment. "But then they told me she was okay because of you." He pulled out a business card and handed it to Zora's mom. "Anything you need, anything at all, you call us. Day or night." "That's very kind," Zora's mom said, taking the card. "It's not kindness," Detective Reynolds said firmly. "It's the least we can do." As they talked, a nurse appeared in the doorway. "Excuse me, but there's a news crew here asking about the girl who saved the police officer. They want to know if she's available for an interview." Zora's eyes widened. "News crew? What? No." Her mother looked equally surprised. "How did they even find out?" Detective Reynolds sighed. "Someone probably called it in. Civilian saves cop makes for good headlines." "Tell them absolutely not," Zora's mom said to the nurse. "My daughter is a minor and she's recovering. They have no right to bother her." The nurse nodded and left, but Zora had a sinking feeling this wouldn't be the end of it. She was right. By evening, the story had somehow made it to the local news. Zora's name wasn't mentioned, but the basic details were there. A teenage girl had saved a pregnant police officer from being hit by a van. Zora's phone began buzzing, with texts from classmates who had pieced together that she must be the girl in the story. "OMG, was that you on the news? Heard you saved a cop? That true? Mrs. Peterson postponed the chem test BC of you." That last one made Zora smile a little. At least she wouldn't have to make up the test right away. Her mom had taken the rest of the day off to stay with her, and they were settled on the couch at home watching a movie. When the doorbell rang, who could that be? Her mom frowned, getting up to check. It was Mrs. Washington from next door, holding a large pot of her famous chicken soup and a plate of cornbread. "I saw the news," the elderly woman said, her voice wobbling with emotion. "I knew it had to be our Zora. Such a brave girl." More neighbors followed, dropping by with food, flowers, and words of praise. Zora was overwhelmed by the attention. By nightfall, their small apartment was filled with casseroles and bouquets. "You're a local celebrity," her mom teased as she found space in the fridge for yet another container of food. "I don't want to be," Zora groaned, adjusting the ice pack on her ankle. "I just did what anyone would do." "That's not true, and you know it," her mom said gently, sitting beside her on the couch. "What you did today was extraordinary, Zora. You risked your own safety to save 2 lives. That's not something anyone would do." Zora was quiet for a moment. "I didn't even think about it, Mom. I just saw what was going to happen and moved." "That's what makes it even more special," her mom said, stroking Zora's hair. "Your first instinct was to help someone else, even at risk to yourself." Later that night, as Zora was drifting off to sleep, her phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from her school counselor. "Zora, I've heard about your heroic actions today. I've spoken with all your teachers, and they've agreed to work with you on making up any missed assignments or tests. Also, the principal would like to talk to you when you return to school. Rest up and get well soon." Zora put her phone down, a mix of emotions swirling inside her. Relief about her schoolwork, embarrassment about all the attention, and something else she couldn't quite name. A strange feeling that life had somehow shifted today, that something important had changed. As she drifted off to sleep, she had no idea just how right she was. The ripples from her actions that morning were only just beginning to spread. The next morning, Zora woke to the sound of her phone buzzing nonstop. She groggily reached for it, wincing at the pain in her shoulder. 27 text messages, 14 social media notifications, and 3 missed calls, all from classmates and friends who had seen the news. "Great," she muttered, putting the phone down without responding to any of them. Her head throbbed slightly. The doctor had warned her about concussion symptoms, and her ankle felt stiff and swollen. Her mom peeked in, already dressed for work. "Hey, sunshine. How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck," Zora said, attempting to sit up. Which is ironic, considering I was trying to avoid exactly that. Her mom smiled sympathetically. "I called in for a half day. I'll stay home with you until noon, then Mrs. Washington said she'd check in on you." "Mom, I'm 17, not 7. I can take care of myself for a few hours." "Humor me," her mom replied, sitting on the edge of the bed. You scared me yesterday. Zora took her mom's hand. I'm sorry. It all happened so fast. Don't you dare apologize for being brave, her mom said fiercely. I'm proud of you. Scared out of my mind, but proud. They ate breakfast together and Zora took the pain medication the hospital had prescribed. She was settling in on the couch with her laptop, thinking she might catch up on some homework when the doorbell rang. I'll get it, her mom called from the kitchen. Zora heard murmured voices, then her mom appeared with a large bouquet of flowers. These are for you. Zora took the arrangement, a colorful mix of lilies, roses, and daisies. The card read, To Zora, our hero. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Tanya and Mike Reynolds, and Baby Reynolds. That's so nice of them, Zora said, genuinely touched. The doorbell rang again. This time it was a delivery person with a fruit basket from her school's administration, and after that another flower delivery from her track team. By 11 o'clock, their small living room looked like a flower shop, and Zora was feeling overwhelmed. This is too much, she said as her mom arranged the latest bouquet on their coffee table. People want to show their appreciation, her mom replied. Let them. When her mom left for work, promising to return as soon as her shift ended, Zora tried to focus on her schoolwork. But her phone kept buzzing with notifications and her head was starting to hurt again. She decided to take a nap. She was awakened by a gentle knock on the door and Mrs. Washington's voice. Zora, dear? Are you awake? There's someone here to see you. Zora rubbed her eyes, confused. Coming, she called, reaching for her crutches and awkwardly making her way to the door. Mrs. Washington stood there with a tall black woman in a sharp business suit. This is Ms. Donna Clark from the mayor's office, Mrs. Washington explained. She wants to talk to you. Mayor's office, Zora repeated, suddenly conscious of her rumpled pajamas and messy hair. Ms. Clark smiled warmly. I'm sorry to drop by unannounced, Zora. I would have called, but your number isn't public for obvious reasons. It's okay, Zora stammered, stepping back to let them in. Sorry about the mess. She gestured vaguely at the flowers and gift baskets crowding the small space. Looks like people are showing their appreciation, Ms. Clark noted, taking a seat when Zora gestured to the couch. What can I do for you? Zora asked, settling into the armchair across from her, propping her injured ankle on a cushion. The mayor was very moved by your story, Ms. Clark began. What you did exemplifies the best of our city. Courage, selflessness, and bringing people together across dividing lines. Zora shifted uncomfortably. I didn't really think about any of that. I just reacted. That makes it even more extraordinary, Ms. Clark said. The mayor would like to honor you at next week's city council meeting. Present you with a Civilian Bravery Award. Zora's eyes widened. What? No, that's too much. I don't need an award. It's not just about you, Zora, Ms. Clark explained gently. It's about lifting up positive stories in our community. Right now, with all the tension between police and communities of color, your story is a breath of fresh air. A black teenager risking her life to save a white police officer. That's a powerful image of unity. Zora hadn't thought about it that way. She'd just seen a pregnant woman in danger and reacted. But she understood what Ms. Clark was saying. The city had its share of racial tensions. Just last year, there had been protests after a police shooting in a neighboring district. I don't want to be used as some kind of symbol, Zora said carefully. Of course not, Ms. Clark assured her. But your actions speak for themselves. All the mayor wants to do is acknowledge your bravery. A simple ceremony, a certificate, and a small scholarship for your college fund. At the word scholarship, Zora's ears perked up. College tuition was a constant worry. Her grades were good enough for admission to several top schools, but paying for it was another matter entirely. Mrs. Washington, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. You should do it, Zora. Your mother would be so proud to see you recognized. Zora chewed her lip, considering. Can I think about it? And talk to my mom? Of course, Ms. Clark handed Zora a business card. Just let me know by Friday. The ceremony would be next Tuesday evening. After Ms. Clark left, Zora called her mom at work. A scholarship? Her mom repeated after Zora explained the visit. How much? She didn't say. But Mom, I don't want to be paraded around like some kind of token. Her mom was quiet for a moment. I understand your concerns, baby. But consider this. Maybe your story is exactly what people need to hear right now. And if there's money for college involved, well, we'd be fools not to at least consider it. Zora sighed. I'll think about it. She spent the rest of the afternoon catching up on schoolwork and responding to messages from friends. Most were supportive and excited for her, though a few seemed almost jealous of the attention she was getting. Her best friend Letitia texted to say she'd recorded the news segment and would bring Zora's homework by after school. True to her word, Letitia showed up around 4 o'clock. "Backpack bulging with books, girl, you're famous," Letitia exclaimed, settling cross-legged on the floor beside the couch. She pulled out her phone and played the news clip. Zora watched, cringing slightly at how dramatic they made everything sound. They hadn't used her name or shown her face, respecting her privacy as a minor. But they did interview witnesses who described what happened. "The young lady just flew into action," an elderly man recounted. "Pushed that officer clean out of the way of that van. Never seen anything like it. Without her quick thinking, we could have lost Officer Reynolds and her unborn child," the police lieutenant stated gravely. "We're deeply grateful." The report ended with a statement from the mayor announcing his intention to honor the brave young citizen at an upcoming ceremony. "So you're going, right?" Letitia asked eagerly when the clip ended. "I don't know," Zora admitted. "It feels weird." "Weird how?" "You're a hero. That's the weird part. I don't feel like a hero. I just did what anyone would do." Letitia rolled her eyes. "Girl, stop saying that. You know that's not true. Most people would have frozen or just yelled a warning. You literally threw yourself in front of danger." Before Zora could respond, her phone rang. It was an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her accept the call. "Hello? Is this Zora Williams?" a man's voice asked. "Yes, who's this?" "My name is Daryl Jenkins. I'm calling from Channel 8 News. We'd love to do a feature story on you for our evening broadcast." Zora's stomach dropped. "How did you get this number?" "That's not important. What's important is sharing your inspiring story with our viewers. We can do the interview wherever you're comfortable." "No," Zora interrupted. "No interviews. And please don't call this number again." She hung up, her hand shaking slightly. "News people?" Letitia asked, her eyes wide. "Yeah." Zora put her phone down. This is getting out of control. By the time her mom got home from work, 2 more news outlets had called. Zora was on edge, feeling like her privacy was being invaded from all sides. "Maybe we should change your number," her mom suggested as they ate dinner. "And then what?" "They'll just show up here like that lady from the mayor's office," Zora said, pushing food around her plate. "I didn't ask for any of this." Her mom reached across the table and took her hand. "I know, baby. But sometimes life puts us in situations we didn't ask for. The question is, what do we do with them?" Later that evening, as Zora was getting ready for bed, Officer Reynolds texted her. "Hope you're feeling better. Mike and I were wondering if we could stop by tomorrow. There's something we'd like to talk to you about." Zora texted back, "Sure, I'm home all day." "Doctor's orders," Officer Reynolds replied with a thumbs-up emoji and a heart. Zora stared at her phone for a long moment. What could Officer Reynolds want to talk about? Was it about the mayor's ceremony? Or something else entirely? She fell asleep wondering what the next day would bring. Unaware that the conversation with Officer Reynolds would offer an unexpected path forward, one that would change the trajectory of her life in ways she couldn't imagine. The next day, Zora was up earlier than usual despite her injuries. She found herself tidying the small apartment, arranging the flowers and even changing outfits twice before Officer Reynolds and her husband were due to arrive. Her mom had gone to work for a morning shift but promised to be back by noon. "This is silly," Zora muttered to herself as she tried to tame her curls. It's not like they're royalty or something. But the truth was she felt nervous. The whole situation was so strange. Having a near stranger owe you their life created an unusual bond, one she didn't quite know how to navigate. The doorbell rang at exactly 10 a.m. Zora grabbed her crutches and made her way to the door. Officer Reynolds stood, there in civilian clothes, jeans, and a loose blouse that gently curved over her small baby bump. Beside her was Detective Reynolds, looking less intimidating than he had at the hospital, dressed in khakis and a button-down shirt. They were holding a gift bag and what looked like a folder of papers. "Hey, Zora," Officer Reynolds said with a warm smile. "Thanks for seeing us. How are you feeling?" "Better," Zora said, stepping back to let them in. "Still sore, but the headache's gone." They settled in the living room, the detectives on the couch and Zora in the armchair with her injured ankle propped up. "We brought you something," Officer Reynolds said, handing over the gift bag. Inside was a beautiful journal with a handmade leather cover, embossed with Zora's initials. "It's gorgeous," she said, running her fingers over the soft leather. "Mike makes them," Officer Reynolds explained. "It's his hobby. You made this?" Zora asked, impressed. Detective Reynolds nodded, looking slightly embarrassed. "It helps me decompress after tough cases." "Thank you," Zora said sincerely. "I love it." There was a moment of awkward silence before Officer Reynolds spoke again. "Zora, we wanted to talk to you about something important." She glanced at her husband, who nodded encouragingly. "We heard from the mayor's office that they're planning to honor you next week." Zora sighed. "Yeah, Ms. Clark came by yesterday. I haven't decided if I'm going to do it." "We understand," Detective Reynolds said. "The spotlight can be uncomfortable." "It's not just that," Zora explained. "I don't want to be turned into some symbol or used for, I don't know, political reasons. I just did what felt right in the moment." Officer Reynolds nodded. "That makes complete sense. Actually, that's part of why we're here. We wanted to offer you another option." Zora raised an eyebrow. "What kind of option?" Detective Reynolds opened the folder he'd brought and pulled out some papers. "There's a police foundation scholarship," he explained. "It's meant for children of officers, but there's also a provision for civilians who have shown exceptional character and service related to law enforcement." Zora's heart began to beat faster. "A scholarship?" "A full ride," Officer Reynolds said. 4 years at any state university, for the equivalent amount toward a private university. Zora's mouth fell open. "Are you serious?" "Completely," Detective Reynolds confirmed. "The Foundation's board has already approved it. They were, well, moved by what you did." "But," Officer Reynolds added quickly, seeing Zora's stunned expression, "this is not about publicity. In fact, we can keep this entirely private if that's what you want. No ceremonies, no press, nothing in the news. Just the scholarship." Zora's mind was racing. A full scholarship would change everything. No more worrying about student loans, no more scholarship applications, no more stress about how to afford her dream schools. "Why?" she asked finally. "I mean, it's incredibly generous, but why me?" Officer Reynolds placed a hand on her belly. "Because my child will have a chance to grow up because of you, Zora. Because you put yourself at risk without even thinking about it. Because character like that deserves to be rewarded." Detective Reynolds nodded. "And frankly, because we need more people like you in this world. Whatever career you choose, doctor, lawyer, teacher, maybe even law enforcement, you're going to make a difference." Zora felt tears welling up. She blinked them back, not wanting to cry in front of these near strangers. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to decide right now," Officer Reynolds assured her. "Talk to your mom. Think it over. We just wanted you to know this option exists. The mayor's office doesn't know about this yet," Detective Reynolds added. "So if you decide to accept our offer, you can turn down their ceremony or do both. It's entirely up to you." Zora nodded, still trying to process everything. "Thank you. I'll definitely talk to my mom about it." They chatted a bit longer. Zora learned that Officer Reynolds had been on the force for 8 years, and her husband for 12. They'd met at the police academy and been married for 5 years. The baby, their first, was due in about 4 months. "We don't know if it's a boy or a girl yet," Officer Reynolds said. "We want it to be a surprise. But," Detective Reynolds added with a small smile, "if it's a girl, we're thinking of naming her Zora." This time, Zora couldn't hold back the tears. "Really?" Officer Reynolds reached over and squeezed her hand. "Really?" By the time they left, Zora felt like her head was spinning. She immediately called her mom. "They're offering what?" Her mom gasped when Zora explained. "A full scholarship? No strings attached?" "Well, they said I'd have to maintain a certain GPA, but that's normal for any scholarship," Zora said. "Mom, this could change everything." "It sure could," her mom agreed, her voice thick with emotion. "Oh, baby. This is such a blessing." When her mom got home that afternoon, they sat at the kitchen table with the scholarship information spread out before them. "So what about the mayor's ceremony?" her mom asked. "Are you going to do that too?" Zora shook her head. "I don't think so. That feels too public. Too much like they're using me for a photo op." Her mom nodded understanding. "Then we'll call Ms. Clark and politely decline. This scholarship is the real deal, not just some small award. This is your future." The next day, Zora called Detective Reynolds to accept the scholarship. His obvious delight made her smile. "You've made the board very happy," he told her. We'll handle all the paperwork. All you need to do is decide where you want to go to college. That evening, as Zora was finishing her homework, her phone dinged with a text from Letitia. "Girl, why didn't you tell me about the van driver?" Zora frowned, confused. "What about him?" She texted back. "He's all over social media. Posted a video looking for you. Says he wants to apologize and make amends." Zora's stomach knotted. She hadn't thought about the van driver since the accident. He'd been so pale, so shocked when he realized what almost happened. She quickly opened her social media and searched. Sure enough, there was a video that had already been shared thousands of times. In it, a middle-aged white man with thinning hair and sad eyes spoke directly to the camera. "My name is Tom Wilson. 3 days ago, I almost killed a pregnant police officer because I was looking at my phone instead of the road. A brave young woman saved the officer's life, but I haven't been able to find her to apologize properly. If anyone knows who she is, please tell her I'm looking for her. I want to make things right." The comments section was filled with people trying to figure out who the mystery hero was, with some already speculating it might be Zora based on bits of information that had leaked. "Great," Zora muttered. "Just what I need. More attention." She was about to close the app when a comment caught her eye. It was from a girl she vaguely knew from school. They shared a math class but weren't friends. Why is everyone making such a big deal about this? It's not like she saved the officer because she's some kind of saint. Black people always have to be heroes to be valued. Maybe she just did it for attention. Anger flared in Zora's chest. She started typing a reply, then stopped herself. Engaging would only make things worse. Instead, she shut off her phone and picked up the leather journal Detective Reynolds had made for her. She opened to the first blank page and began to write, pouring out all her conflicted feelings, the gratitude for the scholarship, the discomfort with the attention, the anger at being judged by people who didn't know her or her motives. Writing helped. By the time she closed the journal, she felt calmer, more centered. Yes, people would talk. Yes, some would judge her unfairly. But she knew the truth. She'd acted from instinct, not for recognition or reward. And now, somehow, that split-second decision had opened a door to her future that she never could have imagined. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Officer Reynolds. "Don't worry about the van driver's video. Mike and I will handle it. Focus on healing in school. We've got your back." Zora smiled at the message. 3 days ago, Officer Reynolds had been a familiar face in the neighborhood, but not someone Zora really knew. Now somehow she felt like an ally, maybe even a friend. As she drifted off to sleep that night, Zora thought about all the unexpected turns her life had taken since that moment at the crosswalk. She still had no idea what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, the path forward seemed clearer, brighter, full of possibility. 3 years later, Zora stood in front of her dorm room mirror, adjusting the collar of her blouse. The navy blue dress pants and crisp white top were a far cry from the casual clothes she usually wore to class. But today wasn't an ordinary day. "You look great," her roommate Danny said, looking up from her textbook. "Very professional." "Thanks," Zora replied, smoothing a hand over her braids, now styled in a neat updo. "I'm so nervous I can barely think straight." "You've got this," Danny assured her. "You've been preparing for this presentation all semester." Zora nodded, taking a deep breath. Today she'd be presenting her community health initiative to the university's medical school faculty, a project she'd poured her heart into for the past 6 months. If approved, it would become a permanent program, connecting pre-med students with underserved neighborhoods for health education and basic screenings. Her phone buzzed with a text. It was her mom. "Just parked. See you in the auditorium. So proud of you, baby." Zora smiled. Her mom had taken the day off work to drive 3 hours to see her presentation. Some things never changed, her mother's unwavering support being chief among them. A second text came through. "We're here too. Little Z is excited to see her, Zora." This text was from Tanya Reynolds, who had become a close friend over the past 3 years. She and Mike had kept their promise, their daughter. Now a rambunctious 2-year-old was indeed named Zora, after the young woman who had saved her mother's life before she was even born. "Your fan club is assembling," Danny teased, having caught a glimpse of the messages. "Stop," Zora groaned, though she couldn't help smiling. "I'm nervous enough without thinking about everyone watching." "Just remember," Danny said, getting up to give Zora a quick hug. "You deserve to be here. This is your moment." The word struck Zora with unexpected force. She did deserve to be here, at one of the top universities in the country on the pre-med track, presenting her own community health initiative. None of it would have been possible without that split-second decision 3 years ago, when she'd pushed Officer Reynolds out of the path of that speeding van. The memory still came to her sometimes in dreams. The screech of tires, the moment of impact as they hit the ground, the fear and pain that followed. But those dreams were less frequent now, replaced by new challenges, new goals, new achievements. Zora gathered her presentation materials and headed across campus to the Medical Sciences building. The spring air was warm and fragrant with blooming flowers. Students sprawled on the lawn studying or chatting in small groups. She waved to a few familiar faces as she passed. At the auditorium, her mom was waiting outside, dressed in her Sunday best, practically bouncing with excitement. "Baby," she called, opening her arms for a hug. "You look so grown up." "Mom," Zora laughed, returning the embrace. "You saw me 3 weeks ago when I came home for the weekend. I know, but every time I see you, you look more like the amazing doctor you're going to be." Before Zora could respond, a small voice shouted, "Zoa!" and a little girl with curly pigtails came running toward them, arms outstretched. Zora knelt down just in time to catch little Zora Reynolds in a hug. "Hey, Zoe, you got so big." Behind the toddler came Tanya, now Lieutenant Reynolds after her recent promotion, and Mike, who had made detective first grade last year. "Sorry we're a little late," Tanya said, giving Zora a warm hug. "Someone insisted on picking flowers for you on the way from the parking lot." She nodded at her daughter, who was now proudly presenting Zora with a slightly crushed dandelion. "It's perfect," Zora said seriously, accepting the gift. "Thank you." Mike shook her hand, then pulled her into a quick hug. "Knock 'em dead in there." The 5 of them entered the auditorium together, finding seats near the front. As Zora made her way to the preparation area, she spotted several other familiar faces in the crowd. There was Mrs. Washington, who had insisted on making the trip despite her arthritis. A few rows back sat Tom Wilson, the van driver whose distraction had nearly caused tragedy 3 years ago. After his video had gone viral, Zora had eventually agreed to meet with him. His remorse had been genuine, his gratitude overwhelming. He'd turned his life around after the incident, becoming a vocal advocate against distracted driving, speaking at schools and community events about the dangers of looking at your phone behind the wheel. He and Zora had formed an unlikely friendship, even collaborating on a public safety campaign for the city. Zora checked in with the program coordinator and took her place with the other student presenters. As she waited for her turn, she thought about how much her life had changed in 3 years. The scholarship from the Police Foundation had made it possible for her to attend this prestigious university without financial worry. But beyond the money, the connections she'd formed had opened doors she never could have imagined. Through the Reynolds, she'd met doctors and medical researchers who had become mentors. She'd been invited to observe surgeries, shadow physicians in different specialties, and even assist with a community health fair in her old neighborhood. Her dream of becoming a doctor had gone from a distant hope to a clear path forward. Not that it had all been easy. Her first semester had been a brutal adjustment, the coursework more demanding than anything she'd faced in high school, the competition fierce, the environment sometimes unwelcoming to a scholarship student from a modest background. There had been nights of tears and self-doubt, days when she wondered if she belonged. But she had persevered, finding her stride, making friends like Danny, earning the respect of her professors. And now, in her junior year, she was presenting an initiative that could make a real difference in communities like the one she'd grown up in. "Zora Williams," the moderator called. "You're up next." Zora took a deep breath, gathered her notes, and stepped onto the small stage. The spotlight felt warm on her face as she looked out at the audience. Her mother, the Reynolds family, her friends and mentors, all watching with encouraging smiles. "Good afternoon," she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "Today I'm presenting Neighborhood Health Navigators, a program designed to bridge the gap between medical resources and underserved communities." As she spoke about her initiative, how pre-med students would be trained to provide basic health education, screening referrals, and resource navigation in neighborhoods with limited healthcare access, Zora felt a sense of purpose that went beyond personal ambition. This wasn't just about becoming a doctor anymore. It was about making healthcare accessible to people like her neighbors, her mother, the community that had raised her. When she finished her presentation 20 minutes later, the applause was enthusiastic. The panel of faculty members asked thoughtful questions which she answered confidently, drawing on both her research and personal experience. "Ms. Williams," said the head of the committee, an older woman with kind eyes behind severe glasses, "your proposal shows exceptional insight into community needs and practical solutions. We're pleased to inform you that your initiative has been approved for implementation next semester, with full departmental funding." Joy rushed through Zora like a wave. She had done it. Her program would become reality. As she stepped down from the stage, her mom was the first to embrace her, tears streaming down her face. "My brilliant girl," she whispered. "I knew you could do it." The Reynolds family surrounded her next, with little Zoe insisting on being picked up despite Zora's formal outfit. "You're amazing, Zora," Tanya said sincerely. "What you're creating will help so many people." Later, as they all celebrated over dinner at Zora's favorite restaurant near campus, Mike raised his glass in a toast. "To Zora," he said, "who not only saved my wife and daughter that day 3 years ago, but continues to save lives through her dedication and vision." "To Zora," everyone echoed, clinking glasses. As Zora looked around the table at these people who had become like family, she thought about how a single moment, a split-second decision she'd made without thinking, had altered the course of so many lives, including her own. She had pushed Officer Reynolds out of the path of a speeding van because it was the right thing to do, not because she expected anything in return. But that act of courage had opened doors, created bonds, and set her on a path she might never have found otherwise. "What are you thinking about?" her mom asked quietly, noticing her thoughtful expression. Zora smiled. "Just how strange life is. How one moment can change everything." Her mom squeezed her hand. "That moment didn't just change you, baby. It revealed you. The courage, the compassion, the quick thinking, all of that was already inside you. The world just got to see it that day." As the evening wound down and goodbyes were said, Zora stood in the warm spring night, watching her unusual extended family head to their cars. Her past and future had collided 3 years ago at that crosswalk, and from that collision had emerged something beautiful. Connections that crossed boundaries of race, age, and background, opportunities that had once seemed out of reach, and a clear vision of the difference she wanted to make in the world. She had risked her life to save a pregnant cop, and in doing so, had found her own life transformed in ways she never could have imagined.